in the KSER studios at 6. Mostly cloudy tonight, low temperature in the upper 30s, cloudy with a chance of rain tomorrow afternoon. This is Sound Living, the Wednesday edition. I'm Ed Brunner. In the next hour, I'll talk with Scott Wilson, editor of the Port Townsend Leader newspaper, and Daryl Gray, special correspondent from Whidbey Island, plus commentary from Roy Holman.
I was giving a workshop recently to a group of men and talking about the feminine energies and how they're increasing on the planet. One man stated that this idea concerns him because women are angry and want excess power.
And Jim Hightower.
Guess what you have to pay to see a movie at Regal Theaters? I'll tell you, today on Hightower Radio.
All of this coming up in the next hour of Sound Living, the Wednesday edition. I'm Ed Bremmer. It starts with news from the BBC, so downshift now, if you please.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. A man has been arrested in New York on suspicion of planning to blow up the city's Federal Reserve building. Quasi Nafis was seized as he tried to detonate what he thought was a van full of explosives. From New York, Barbara Plett.
A statement issued by the Department of Justice says the 21-year-old Bangladeshi man, Qazi Mohammed Nafis, came to America in January with the intention of carrying out a terrorist act. But one of the people he allegedly tried to recruit to help him turned out to be an FBI informer, so he was monitored closely. Police say at no time was the public in any danger. In fact, in what was clearly a sting operation, an FBI agent posing as an Al-Qaeda facilitator supplied him with what he thought were explosives. The agent was with him on Wednesday morning when he assembled what he thought was a 1,000-pound bomb and allegedly tried to detonate it next to the Federal Reserve Bank. He was arrested immediately afterwards.
Militiamen have shelled the town of Bani Walid in Libya, killing at least 5 people and wounding many others. The attackers were reported to be former rebels, now linked to the Libyan army. Libya's National Assembly has authorized the use of force to track down the killers of the man credited with capturing Colonel Gaddafi last year. 2 major corporations, Nike and Budweiser, have ended their sponsorship of the American cyclist and 7-time Tour de France winner Lance Armstrong in the wake of the doping accusations against him. Both companies will, however, continue to support Armstrong's cancer-fighting charity Livestrong, from which the cyclist is stepping down as chairman. Alex Capstick reports.
The sportswear manufacturer had pledged to support Lance Armstrong, but it seems the weight of evidence supplied by the United States Anti-Doping Agency has convinced Nike to end its long-standing relationship with the most successful cyclist in the history of the Tour de France. In a statement, it accused him of apparently misleading the company for more than a decade. The news was released minutes after Lance Armstrong announced he would no longer be a figurehead for Livestrong, the cancer charity he formed in 1997. He said he wanted to limit the damage caused by the doping scandal.
Uruguay has become the second country in Latin America after Cuba to legalize abortion. The measure has deeply divided opinion in this mainly Roman Catholic country. Vladimir Hernandez has more details.
With 17 votes in favor and 14 against, the Uruguayan Senate agreed to allow abortions up to the 12th week of pregnancy. Until now, abortions were illegal except in exceptional circumstances. The legislation has been hugely controversial in a staunchly Roman Catholic society. But human rights organizations had backed the bill, saying it would reduce the deaths of women who underwent clandestine backstreet abortions. Uruguay's President José Mujica now has to sign the bill into law.
World News from the BBC. The governing body of European football, UEFA, has opened a disciplinary hearing into both the Serbian and English football associations following a chaotic under-21 playoff match. UEFA officials said the two were being investigated for what it called the improper conduct of their players after alleged racist chanting by Serbian fans. The Serbian Football Association has denied any racism during the match. The Israeli Foreign Ministry has acknowledged that elements of the blockade of the Gaza Strip, which was tightened when Hamas came to power 5 years ago, were irrational. The Foreign Ministry spokesman, Yigal Palmore, said he never understood why some foodstuffs were permitted while others were not.
I remember the coriander question, and indeed I have no answer to that, because we never understood why the Minister of Defense actually forbade coriander to enter Gaza, but it did reflect some kind of petty interference with items that seemed of little note.
Mr. Palmore was speaking after an Israeli court forced the release of government research detailing the number of calories needed by Palestinians in Gaza to avoid malnutrition. Nigeria's First Lady, Patience Jonathan, has appeared on state television to assure people she is not terminally ill. Mrs. Jonathan was speaking after she returned home from receiving medical treatment in Germany. She disappeared from public view last month, sparking rumours and speculation about the reason for her absence. Scientists in California say dolphins can stay alert and active for 15 days or more by sleeping with only half of their brain at a time. They think the trick is a key survival trait, enabling dolphins to use one eye to come to the surface to breathe and keep a watch for predators. Researchers measured the brain waves of 2 bottlenose dolphins as they carried out a series of extensive echolocation tests. BBC News.
Heck, I've been getting by with half brain being asleep for years. What's new about that? This is Sound Living on Independent Public Radio, 90.7 FM, KSER. Coming up this afternoon, Scott Wilson will be joining us, editor of the Port Townsend Leader. Daryl Gray will be along from Whidbey Island. Also, we'll be hearing from the 2 candidates for Snohomish County PUD Commissioner District 2, and we've got commentary from Roy Holman. We'll catch up with Miriam Driss and find out where she is on her ride from the Canadian border down to the Mexican border as we talk with her every Wednesday here on Sound Living from KSER. Out on the freeway this afternoon, if you are making the way home or if you are sitting in your office wondering if you should sprint to the parking lot. Right now, heading out to Seattle to Everett is 39 minutes right now. Bellevue to Everett is 40 minutes. And Everett to Seattle is 39 minutes, and Everett to Bellevue is 32 minutes. If you are going far north this afternoon, be advised that all lanes of northbound I-5 up near the border will be closed due to an incident at the Peace Arch. There was a shooting up there. Northbound drivers are being diverted to 543, but delays are expected. And there's an alternate border crossing at State Route 539 and State Route 9, Linden and Sumas. But I-5 at the Peace Arch up near the border, milepost 275 remained closed until an incident at the Peace Arch crossing is completely investigated. Elsewhere, 405 northbound, just north of 8th, has a collision blocking the HOV lane. Medical aid, fire assistance, and state patrol are on the scene there. And on 5 northbound, the express lanes just north of Lake City Way, there was a disabled vehicle blocking the left lane. It's been cleared, but it is still keeping things a bit slow. On 5 northbound, the express lanes just north of Lake City Way, things are a bit slow there because of a vehicle that was blocking the left lane. It's been cleared, but still, folks are still slowing down to watch. The weather forecast calls for mostly cloudy skies today. Low temperature tonight in the upper 30s. Cloudy with a chance of rain tomorrow afternoon. High temperature near 60. And the weekend forecast, cloudy with a chance of showers on Friday and Saturday, and mostly cloudy with showers on Sunday. But tonight, mostly cloudy. Low temperature in the upper 30s to the mid 40s. Coming up, Scott Wilson, Daryl Gray, and the candidates for Snohomish County PUD District position number 2 will be having some recorded statements, and they will be my guests at 6 o'clock this evening. And you can join the conversation with them at 6 tonight on KSER. Just ahead, Scott Wilson from the Port Townsend Leader newspaper, but first a look at some of the underreported stories of the week. And these Between the Lines headlines are heard each Wednesday on Sound Living, and you can hear Between the Lines in its entirety Friday afternoons at 6. Up on this week, an examination of the impact of the Hugo Chavez election victory on the trajectory of the left in Latin America. An update on the ongoing struggle for justice in the case of Rachel Corrie and the story of the Justice Party presidential campaign. That's on Between the Lines. That's Friday at 6 o'clock here on KSER. Joining me on the telephone right now this afternoon, Mark Taylor-Canfield, and we have been talking over the weeks about a series of grand jury investigations that have been going on in the Seattle area, and there have been some developments. Mr. Taylor-Canfield, thank you for coming back this afternoon with me on Sound Living.
No problem, Ed.
Explain to me, just briefly, for those who may have missed our previous conversation, what is the grand jury investigating, and then tell us what the most recent developments are.
Well, it's a very difficult story because it is a secret grand jury, and all of the documents are sealed in terms of any of the subpoenas that have happened or the warrants. But back in July, as we mentioned before, there was a raid on homes and of activists in Seattle and Portland. And after that, there were 4 subpoenas that were received by activists, 2 in Portland, 2 in Seattle, and 1 in Olympia. In the process of this grand jury, which we found out recently actually through some information, we found out that this whole process actually started long before the May Day protests in Seattle, which is what most people have been, basically they've been linking the two, saying that this investigation is about property damage to buildings in Seattle on May Day. But we're finding out that this investigation was going on long before that, and that's why it's a difficult story to report on, because the information is not readily available. But I can tell you that as of today, the latest information that I have is that there are 3 activists who are being held at a federal facility at SeaTac, and they've been charged with civil contempt for refusing to testify at the grand jury. The grand jury has been convening in Seattle, and the first activist was actually jailed in August. That was Matt Duran. The second one, that's Catherine Olshanik, was also put in a federal facility, and then just recently it's Leolyn Plant, who also refused to testify. And the strange circumstances regarding it is sort of a catch-22, I guess, because she was not allowed to invoke her Fifth Amendment right, according to the Constitution, and that's because the court or the grand jury ruled that since she was not the target of any criminal investigation and no charges were going to be filed against her, that she wasn't allowed to stand by the Fifth Amendment, which would be her right not to incriminate herself. And what they're saying is, since there's no crime that she's committed, she cannot invoke the Fifth Amendment. So because she was not allowed to do that, she's now in jail. So it's a very strange situation in a lot of ways. There's been a lot of protests. The National Lawyers Guild is speaking out against it, saying that this is a violation of people's First Amendment rights to freedom of speech. And there have actually been protest actions and vigils and solidarity rallies internationally at this point, although the problem with the story yet is that the corporate media is just refusing to cover it. There's almost a complete media blackout, and except for some of my articles at Huffington Post and stuff I've done for Free Speech Radio News, and one really good article, or 2 really good articles in Salon.com, the rest of the media is just not covering it, including local media in Seattle, which is, as a journalist, which is what my main job is, that's very, very disappointing to me, and I'm just glad that you are willing to report on it, because it's a story that I think is really important to the local community as well as the international community in terms of human rights, and yet it's just not being covered. I'm waiting for folks like Yoko Ono or someone to step in and give these activists some attention, like she was able to do with the Pussy Riot band in Russia, because right now there really is no corporate media coverage of what's going on.
Maybe you should send an email of Amy Goodman of Democracy Now! Once the elections get out of the way. Well,
yes,
are you
been informing them on this?
You must have a source inside the grand jury in order for you to know that Ms. Plant didn't, rather that she used her Fifth Amendment and was not allowed to do that. If the hearings of the grand jury are secret, this would be information that you wouldn't otherwise know.
Except that she's been speaking out publicly. That's the only way we know. And the civil contempt hearings are actually open to the public and open to journalists, but the grand jury investigation, the grand jury, when it's convening, we are not allowed in. So, no, it's just because the activists themselves have been speaking out, and there are about a half a dozen solidarity websites now. Folks could go to any search engine pretty much right now and put in Seattle Grand Jury investigation, and you'll find that there's no news reports, but there are local grassroots groups that have put up websites in support of them, and they're especially getting support from a lot of anarchists, according to what these websites are saying. And that's because originally there was an indication because of some political material that the FBI, I believe, confiscated from the Portland home, that it was targeting the anarchist movement in the Northwest. And that's how it's been reported, although the accuracy of that is not clear because at least one of the activists claims not to be an anarchist. So it's very unclear, actually, of what the target of this investigation is. And it remains to be seen when we'll know. U.S. Attorney Jenny Durkin has sealed all of the documents, so I don't know much more than that, Ed. I wish I could tell you.
And then what is the status at this time of Leylyn Plant, Mac Duran, and Catherine Oleginik? Are they in custody or are they at liberty? Do you know their status?
The latest information I have, and unfortunately I've been covering the debate, so I haven't had a chance to jump on this in the last couple of days, but as far as I know, and all the reports I've seen lately, is that all three of them are still being held at a federal facility in SeaTac, Washington. And there is, on a couple of the websites, you can find their contact information so that people can actually write to them. And they are receiving a lot of mail, a lot of support. The original reports were that Matt Duran was being held in solitary confinement. There's another name for that, as like a secure communications unit, something like that. But he's now been released into the general prison population there, so he can accept mail and other contact, with people. I don't think that they have much freedom to speak. It's mainly through the mail at this point, as far as I can tell.
And as of now, of the 4 subpoenas that were issued, 1 has been dropped, and these 3 people, Leylyn Plant, Mac Duran, and Catherine Oleginik, are in custody and are being charged with the crime, civil contempt, for refusing to testify.
Correct. So as far as I understand it, and I'm not an attorney, but and during a grand jury investigation, people can be held for contempt for refusing to testify, and then they can be held for the duration of the grand jury, which at this point we don't know, but one time frame that's been thrown out there has been 18 months, so we don't really know. But in the meantime, yes, all 3 of them are at a federal facility, and one of the activists from Portland, his subpoena was actually dropped, and the National Lawyers Guild and Neil Fox especially, who is part of the local National Lawyers Guild, he's been calling upon Jenny Durkin to drop all of the subpoenas, and there's also a petition online that's gained support from groups all over the country and all over the world, actually, sort of protesting this kind of a grand jury investigation. And I guess it comes down to, in people's minds, the fact that since we don't have information and we don't know what the target of any so-called criminal investigation is, it just smacks of political repression for people to have their homes raided and then be thrown in jail for refusing to speak. So I think it doesn't matter what country you come from or where you're at in the world, that's seen as a human rights issue right there. And
we will talk again, if I may be so bold, as additional information is made available, and we will ask you to contact us, and we will continue to follow it.
Absolutely. It's really important that the story gets out, so thanks to KSER and Pacifica Radio and Democracy Now! And anybody else who is going to cover this, because it's a really important issue that I think folks around the world need to know, and it really needs to be brought to the attention of the public so people can see what's going on, so there's not just a small group of activists that are feeling this sense of isolation and oppression right now.
Mark, thank you again for talking with us, and we'll check back with you as the story continues to develop.
Thanks, Ed. Have a good day anytime.
You too. Mark Taylor-Canfield, who is a journalist, and talking with me about the grand jury investigations that are going on. And again, there is more information. There is a nopoliticalrepression.wordpress.com website if you want to find out more information about that. And we will contact and talk with Mark Taylor-Canfield as this story continues to develop. You're listening to Sound Living on KSER.
Gosh, I feel so much safer now that teenage ticket takers at the Regal chain of movie theaters have been directed by corporate chieftains to search the purses of their female customers. Responding to the horrible Colorado movie theater murders, the Regalites say they've begun rummaging through moviegoers' purses to protect us from what? The Colorado shooter had an armory of weapons that didn't fit in any purse. And need I point out that he was a he? Yet Regal's rummaging is reserved for women, even though practically all mass shootings have been made by the male species. Why should anyone surrender their privacy just to see a movie? Yes, we essentially get strip searched to board an airplane these days, but even that's of very dubious value, and at least it's done by trained security personnel. What's a 17-year-old, low-wage, untrained corporate hiree going to do if he or she pokes into a purse and finds a Ruger semi-automatic? Shriek? Wrestle the owner to the floor? Also, if customers packing heat have a concealed handgun permit, won't they have to be waved through? And maybe even given a free popcorn for being authorized gun toters? This is Jim Hightower saying, has our land of the free become such a scaredy-cat nation that we'll succumb not merely to a police state, but to the authoritarian falderall of a corporate state that feels entitled to rifle through our personal belongings as the price of entry into a movie? The good news is no. All across our country, women are walking away from Regal's pretentious abrogation of our people's Fourth Amendment rights. I don't think we should be searched, not without a cause, said a spunky Austin moviegoer, putting the Constitution over Regal and putting a smile on the faces of Jefferson, Madison, and the other founders who established our right to be free of such ridiculous searches.
And you can hear Jim Hightower every Wednesday on Sound Living from KSER. Just ahead, Scott Wilson, editor of the Port Townsend Leader newspaper. Stay with us.
Support for KSER comes from members in Get Distilled Water Service, providing distilled and purified water for North King and Snohomish counties and Camino Island. Located in Mukilteo for 11 years, Get Distilled Water Service contact information on KSER's online business directory.